You're listening to The Talent Sync. The Talent Sync is a talent board and job sync collaborative podcast production about anything and everything recruiting and hiring. Literally the kitchen sink on how all things in talent acquisition work together, should work together, and how sometimes they don't. Now it's time to sync up with your hosts, Kevin Grossman and Leah Daniels. Today's topic is, it's not really the quality of hire. Enjoy the podcast. Hello, Leah. How are you doing this fine day?
Kevin, the sun is shining. It's freezing cold.
Is it really?
Summer's here. It is. Summer is here. I'm very confused. I love it. Let's do this.
Well, the weather's been nice here. It's foggy in the mornings on the West Coast, but then in the Bay Area, but then it's been nice in the afternoons. But I was just in New York running a workshop and gorgeous weather. I mean, like coolish. It reminded me of the Bay Area, actually. It was like 65. No, not really warmer than that, but blue sky and just a gorgeous time to walk around.
And then you flew out and the cold rolled on in.
Oh, that's what happened?
Oh, yeah. They're like, bring your plants in. Frost freezes everywhere. I'm like, what is this nonsense?
Anyway, the weather is, yes, but and then we have this is normal for us, that getting the marine layer in the morning and then it burns off in the afternoons. But yeah, so how are things otherwise? You good? The family's good?
Things are good. We have 20 days left of school. The countdown
20
is
days.
on.
Our next week is the last week for us. We end at the end of May now, the past 2 years.
No, we can't wait to go way
We
to
start,
June.
I know. Well, we start earlier, like at the beginning of August now. That's our school year starts then and ends at the end of May. Got a big graduation. My oldest, Beatrice, is graduating 8th grade. 8th grade next week. And then she's going to, I know she's like reminiscing about all the good times that she's had in middle school, but is really, you're kind of like, I don't want to go to high school, Dad. I don't want to go. I say, you're going to be fine.
She's like, I need a year off.
It's a big. She needs a sabbatical. She needs a sabbatical. She needs to travel the world first, and then she can go to high school. That's kind of her thing. But yes,
I love that.
A big graduation. So excited.
Congratulations to her. That's amazing.
Yeah, exciting. We're looking forward to it. So it's the fun part, and then we can jump into the topic. Because I'm on the local school board, I get to be on stage for her.
Oh.
When she's graduating, I told her I promised not to yell too loud.
Did you promise not to like shed a tear too?
But I'm a crier. I'm a super crier. Oh God. I mean, the joke is that anytime we're watching something as a family, and if there's an emotional moment of any level, all three of my 2 daughters and my wife turned to me and said, "Are you crying?" Every single time.
Oh.
And most of the time I am. So there you go. Super crier. Are you a crier, Leah?
The Little Mermaid may have gotten
you don't strike
times.
Really? You don't strike me as a crier, though.
No,
I don't know.
no.
That's not a bad thing.
I think the Disney movies will get me every day now and again. I mean, Disney does a really good job at like just going right for the heartstrings, and I lean into it. I lean into it. But like Kevin, it's interesting because what I'm not a crier on are like the things a lot of people are, like graduations and marriages and sort of these big life event things. Those don't get me.
They don't really. It's that's how you're actually like my wife. Then that's, in fact, there's more of, for her sometimes when something gets emotional, there's an awkward laughter that she'll have, like inappropriate awkward laughter during times. And my youngest does that too. They're funny. They're both that way. But and my eldest is more emotional like me. But no, Dad's the crier. So that's interesting.
I'm an emotional laugher when my husband gets hurt, which does not go over well. I can't.
I was going to say,
dang.
Dang.
I feel bad because I'm like, I'm laughing. I should have laughed now.
Thanks, honey. Thanks. Can you dial 911 now? So we're going to talk about the recruiter and hiring manager relationship, and from creating a job, the intake session, however that works at any organization, what do you need? What are you looking for? What are the skills, experience, putting the job description together, putting it out there, all the way until making that final selection and what happens before day one too. And some of it in one of our last shows, I mean, we've talked about pieces of this because there's always pieces of this to talk about, right? But you said before we started the show, because we were also going to talk about quality of hire, and you told me you have a problem with the word quality, and I'm waiting to hear why.
I think the challenge with the word quality is that we use it flippantly. So we say these candidates aren't quality. And there's this judgment piece of these humans who have applied for your job. It's kind of like I dislike calling employees resources. It's a little bit dehumanizing in the process. We call soldiers GIs, government issue. There are all these terms we use in which we unintentionally dehumanize the people involved. And I think quality of candidate is not meant to describe the human, but rather the skills, but it tends to seep a little bit. I don't know. I don't love it. I understand why we do it. I understand what we're measuring, but I don't like the terminology because I do think it dehumanizes the people involved. It's my soapbox.
I just met somebody, and actually this is somebody that, as we talk about in the future shows, to start having maybe some guest segments, and we were talking about that before we started recording today. I met an individual, and I don't know if you've heard of him or not, named Dart Lindsley. He's a longtime head of HR, TA, Googler, he's with Cisco for a long time. Anyway, he knows like Jerry Crispin and Kevin Wheeler and other people in our space. And we were at an event last night, and his wife is retiring as a teacher. Again, hence the school board connection for me. Long story short, we started talking, and we're like, oh, we know all these mutual people. And he has his own podcast too called Work for Human. But he was talking about related things to this, about how I didn't look this up, so I don't know what the origin is, but he was saying like the word employee means used thing, which I had no idea what that even means. But I think to your point about quality, so I get that, right? Because I think I've never thought of it that way, because it's, for me, I don't want to put any judgment on an individual. It's like either you are qualified for the role based on skills and experience, or you're not qualified for the role. And I think of it that way, but that's a really good point. So how would you say that otherwise? How would you preface that? Because if I want this to be somebody who is going to perform and produce and be a thriving individual in my organization based on selection process, getting them onboarded, what would you call that measurement of their performance, or the whole package, I guess?
Really, we use this word quality, and we describe a lot in that word, right? We describe what you just said. Do they have the skills or the experience? And then we apply it also to their soft skills and their personality and their culture fit. And then there's a big one that we don't think about so much, which is the manager and their own abilities actually lends into whether or not your candidate is quality, which I always think is interesting, right? So if you have a manager who's not a very effective like a person who can select good talent for the business, or can't help them grow and be really effective in the organization, we are still lumping that into the candidate themselves as quality.
And not holding the managers accountable.
Yeah. And so I think it's just, I don't know, I think the word has a little bit of fuzz on it for me that I don't particularly enjoy. And so I do think there's an opportunity for us to think about the world through maybe micro segments here, right? So first of all, hard skills and qualifications. Are they qualified is different than are they quality. They're not the same. And when you start thinking about, like we were talking last time, about how much of this is the recruiter's responsibility versus the hiring manager's responsibility, well, qualified is really the recruiter's responsibility. Is this person minimally qualified? Can they do the job that we're after? The reason I'm thinking about a lot of this is I was having a conversation just the other day with a company who told me their job boards don't produce quality. And I was like, oh, that's a question for me to dig into. Tell me more. Tell me more.
Well, it's not like we haven't heard that before either, though, right?
So what is it? How do you measure it? What do you know? And what they came back is that job boards on average for them produce between 37 and 43% quality. Little star on that. And I said, what does that mean? And they said it means that it got through the first set of do not qualifieds and got through the first set of recruiter accepted. So that was really the metric that they were running against. And I was like, okay, so what you're saying is really qualified. It's not really quality, it's qualified. And I think that that's a really good place to say, okay, that's starting sort of out of the gate. That's what we're looking for first. And now let's talk about the next set.
Well, and let's unpack that, right? Because I love this, because I think that we're getting to the heart of something, because this is also the conundrum of even trying to define what quality of hire is for companies too, right? So if we unpack that and we talk about, are you qualified for this role based on your skills and experience and potential? If that is something you're looking for in that role, are you qualified for that? And that is something that, because this goes back to what I think we talked about in the metric show that we did, is about quality of applicant versus quality of hire. And again, this goes to the heart of what you're saying about the word quality. So I get that part, because what really is going on is that the recruiting team is identifying individuals that are supposed to meet the criteria of what was outlined in the job description, with the meetings with the managers who are going to be hiring these individuals and ultimately supervising them, managing them, etc. So what is a qualified applicant? That's what recruiting is on the hook for, right? To get them to the door of then the final stages of screening and interviewing. The thing that I'm stuck on, and I totally agree that of us, let's think of it another way. Then what do we then call that then? Is it a qualified finalist that the hiring managers then select from? Right? Because if you're getting down to a short list, again, when we're simplifying it, I know evergreen hiring is a different thing altogether, potentially, but you're still getting down to the list of people who are qualified finalists, right? But then what do we then measure? If we're not going to call it quality of hire, and we're talking about qualified applicants and candidates and then qualified finalists that then the hiring manager will then select from, what are we then measuring post day one to say, because there's the feedback loop, right? To come back to the TA teams and say, these individuals really are thriving. They are producing, they're thriving, they are happy campers, whatever you want to call them. We want more of people like this with these skills and experience and everything. But what are we then measuring? Is it then still performance and productivity? And what do we call it?
Time for a talent sync break.
Hey everybody, Kevin Grossman here, president of Talent Board and the Candidate Experience Awards. Our 2023 Candidate Experience Benchmark Research Program will open in January and run through August 31st. To learn more on how your organization can participate, go to thetalentboard.org.
Break time's over. Now back to the talent sync.
Those are really great questions. And it's more complicated than even that, right? I'm going to make it worse. Let's make it worse before we make it better.
No, keep going. I love it. This is great.
I had gotten a conversation the other day about something similar, which is it better to hire someone with industry experience and they speak the lingo and they know the world because they're going to ramp faster? Or is it better to hire somebody with all the right building blocks who's going to take longer to ramp but will potentially thrive in the business further and longer? Because to your point, and actually to a lot of these metrics that I see, we're looking at 90-day, 180-day productivity, speed to impact. We're looking at a lot of metrics, and I think it's interesting because for a lot of companies, you actually need both. You need some hires, and I don't know if you can identify it ahead of time or not, that are going to ramp really quickly, impact right away, but they may never be your next CEO, and that's okay. And other people who might take longer to ramp, but they're really smart and you can see them putting the pieces together and they're getting better every day and the potential is far more unlimited. And you really have to think about, for each kind of role, if you're going to hire, let's say, at volume storefront employees, do you need them to be your future CEOs? Or do you just need someone with retail experience that knows kind of how the ropes work?
There's so many variables that are there too. And you're right about that. What was I just seeing? I was watching a video, the current CEO of HP. I guess I did not know, and I'm drawing a blank on his name, but it was a brief video that they put out. It was kind of I think an employment branding video too for them, for recruiting and hiring. His story that he had started as a data analyst, or again, I'm probably getting this wrong, but the point is, the story was about he started here, way down here in the organization.
He was an engineering intern.
Thank you. Are you looking it up for me?
His name's Enrique Flores.
Thank you.
I would not that good.
I appreciate looking it up because I was kind of winging it and I didn't have it in front of me. So, but whatever. It was a great story though, right? And that can sometimes happen, but that's not, depending on, because companies, as I've known over the past few decades too, they still don't do a very good job at workforce planning or succession planning. And we don't have to go down that path. But whatever they're doing those things, it's also, are they also including the well-being of this individual? That's not something else we've been talking a lot about the past few years. But how does that fit into the measure of success? Because if how much I'm producing and how the great work that I'm doing, and maybe I'm advancing, but how do I feel like I belong? Do I feel, am I doing okay? Like, what the past 3 years have shown us. But I'm still struggling with,
how do you measure?
And what are we measuring then too? And if we're not going to use the word quality, that's something that this could be fun for us in future shows, because there's going to be topics that we come back to, right? Again and again. If we start having some guest segments on to pick their brains about some of these things, like the person Dart that I just met, who talks about this all the time. And in fact, his thing is, the reason why he said he calls his podcast Work for Human, and I know I'm kind of plugging it, but it was fascinating to hear. It's about, well, how are we creating work for the people, not the other way around, getting the people for the work. But again, so we're not going to necessarily answer that today, but the thing that I want to touch on that relates to this is, again, go back before day one, right? So again, I agree with you. Let's take quality of hire, that term, out of the mix. So we were just at, like I mentioned, Virtusa doing this workshop, and we talked a lot with some of their team, and we had some of their heads of their divisions too. They're a big IT tech company. So they're part of their TA team, as well as some of the heads of their business units that we are on this panel talking about things, and how they've really, and this goes back to the kind of the relationship part of these individuals. They've really done a lot of work, not only from the intake stage on, but from the final stages. And they are actually in the process of, before, like, the recruiters were the ones making the final offer to finalists. They're trying to change that internally. So I heard this, Southwest I've heard other candy community companies getting the hiring managers, in order to solidify these individuals more before day one, getting them to do more of that, them to do the outreach. When I was looking up, for example, in our latest 2023 candy data that we're still capturing now, it's a little bit higher than the past few years, but only 44% of the candidates who are getting hired say that they're hearing from their hiring manager before they start. 44%. And that's only a little bit higher than the previous years, but they are making Virtusa in particular this example of getting the hiring manager more involved with the finalists, with the selection process, with the communication and nurturing and engagement prior to them starting, which I think is great, because we've talked about this in past shows too, how that can help with retention.
Just give you some data. Yesterday I had hosted our roundtable, and this wonderful author, Lindsay Pollock, was on. I'm gonna promo her now. And she was talking about how, in her research, the candidates are very much selecting opportunities because of the person they're going to work for, not the company anymore. Right? There used to be this sort of common theory that people went to companies and left bad bosses, right? You go to a company for the opportunity, you leave because your boss is terrible. And she's saying that that's not the case anymore. People are really trying to find the person that they're going to relate to, that they think is going to help them, that they want to work for that person, and the human connection between the candidate and the hiring manager. And I think that goes to what you're saying, right? That you can't have that expectation and also have all of these abandonment feelings in between offer and start date, because you can get in your own head and think to yourself, this is a really big deal. This is a big shift I'm making to go to your company, especially if I'm leaving another one, and you don't even care enough to see how I'm doing, if it's okay, if there's anything I need beforehand. That's a big deal, right? It's a big deal that people aren't making that effort.
Well, it's interesting that she was saying that. I mean, I still don't think you can't separate brand affinity, though, still, because even though, yes, I agree that I want to work for somebody I want to work for. We've seen the exodus that we've seen the past 2 years alone, even though the pendulum's kind of swung back to an employer market on some levels now. But still, for those qualified individuals that hard to fill roles, and even those that are repetitive filled roles, candidates still, still in the driver's seat some of the time, but it's still there's still a brand affinity aspect. I mean, even though maybe some of the layoffs and a lot of the tech individuals that have been let go from the big four and some of these big companies, maybe that has tainted their perception of those brands now. And they're like, maybe I don't want to have brand affinity for Meta anymore or Amazon or whatever. It doesn't matter. But there's still, because I remember, pre-pandemic when the whole Amazon toxic environment thing came out, right? Oh, it's such a toxic environment. It's horrible to work there, blah, blah, blah. And yet people still wanted to work there. They still want to work there. And you're right. So maybe it's the individual, but there's still a brand affinity too. I want to have that on my resume, or I want that experience. I like the company, but I do think that's the case. And I could sense that when I look all the employers that we've worked with at Talent Board and the research that we do over the years around candidate experience, recruiting and hiring, the companies that have been the multi-year candy winners, the ones that have the above average candidate experience ratings, their teams work really well together. And there's little churn. There's been a lot of churn the past few years in a lot of companies, but there's little churn. And this week solidified it again for me of how well just watching them interact, not even during the workshop, but in between, I'm like, wow, these people really care about each other and care about growing this business and hiring the right individuals. And I see that theme play out again and again. And there was a couple of team members from New York Presbyterian, and that's another company that's been multi-year candy winners, and I know how well their team works together. And that makes a big difference, especially when they have partnered more with the hiring managers, hence what we're talking about. I still don't know what to call it.
Maybe we'll find a name.
We can make something up too, if it makes sense.
We've done a good job at that so far, so I think this is a good point. But if you think about your brand, right? Your brand is really important at a couple of parts in the process. If you're a candidate at the last stage and you've got two opportunities in front of you, brand, it might play into it a little bit, but those humans that you're going to have to spend your days with are definitely a big part of it. And so it's brand, but brand is really a manifestation. Your employment brand is a manifestation of your culture, and not the one you wrote on your website, the real culture, that thing you feel when you're in the room and you're like, these people care about each other and they care about the business, and it's a team, right? I think this word team is really, really interesting because you can feel teams.
You can, because you work with a lot. You've worked with a lot of companies over the years, and you've worked with a lot of teams, and whether they've been customers or you do feel it, you sense it, and it translates into. And I'm trying not to use the word quality. It translates into, improved recruiting selection decisions. It translates into higher retention. It translates into positive business impact, right? Maybe growing revenue, all those things.
It grows into more than that. It's trust, right? Companies who have employees who trust each other actually get things done faster because they're not busy questioning each other.
Time for a Talent Sync break.
Hi, Talent Sync listeners. I just wanted to share a bit about JobSync with you all. JobSync helps companies get more quality candidates out of their job board advertising and automates a variety of manual recruitment tasks by solving for the very low conversion rate challenges most companies experience on their career site. JobSync integrates your entire application, including all of your questions, directly into the various job boards' quick apply processes, providing you with fully completed applications directly into your ATS and resulting in 2 to 5 times more candidates while dropping your cost per application by half. This helps return up to 10 hours a week back into your recruiter's time through custom automations that are based on your business-specific recruiting processes. JobSync works with most major ATSs like Workday, SuccessFactors, and Taleo, CRMs, programmatic platforms, and job boards like Indeed and Zip. You can check out jobsync.com to learn more.
Break time's over. Now back to the Talent Sync.
Right, I agree with you on that. And there's tons of bodies of research out there about trust in the workplace, and for good reason. But we're not going to measure that, though, right?
We can't trust that as a measurement.
We can't trust that as a no. You're right. See, good. See what you did there. But I mean, because to know, I just think that 6 months later, after this person, after they had applied, they had the recruiting team, they were selected, they were screened, they were assessed, if that's part of the equation. They were then interviewed, they were then they were presented to the hiring manager, they were in final interview stage, they were made the offer, they accepted. 6 months later, it's a performance evaluation though, right?
I know. You go back to the word quality because it fits. It's so hard when you apply it to the human individually. It works as an aggregate, but it really does. I think you struggle, like I struggle with it as it applies to a human. That was not a quality hire. Like, what are you actually saying about that person?
Well, and that's the thing, right? Because I could just say, I can still call it's a qualified candidate who we ended up hiring, who 6 months later is not producing. They're being let go, or they're being reskilled and moved to another thing, whatever. The thing is, they were qualified at the point of hire, but they're not performing, later on. See, and then the question is that an issue in the selection process though? Because I don't think you can know that. Even the level of AI now that we're inundated with, of what and how it's going to continue to impact screening and hiring and assessments that are being given. You can have a higher level of insight into this person should perform
in our environment,
well,
based on the things,
based on all the things. But then if they don't, what's wrong and why?
Well, and that's where actually aggregate data is interesting, right? Because this person did not perform, or is it actually this team has a general performance issue? Your poor quality hire might actually be nothing to do with the people you're hiring, right? This could be your hiring manager.
Well, that's
problem.
The thing, right?
And that's why it gets really tricky.
And then it's got to loop back on going all the way back to the intake session and what is it that you're looking for and why. And those are things that I know I've heard. That's why it's always easy to get a laugh when I say to a room of TA folks, we all get along with our hiring managers, right? They give us feedback when we need it, and you get chuckles and snickers, and they do, but there's going to be those that don't either. That's the thing when I look at the research that we do. That's why I'm hard pressed to make any correlations at all, because there's so many variables that we can't control, and what impacts perception of fairness and positive experience and the hiring selection itself and what the hiring manager didn't do. But again, so maybe we shouldn't, if you take the word quality out, and I've heard TA leaders say this, we shouldn't even be measuring quality of hire at all because of this conversation that you and I are having. Right?
Yes. I mean, I think such a judgmental thing. I think you should measure productivity of hires. That's a thing you should measure. Business impact. But you should also measure, cohorts. You should just all sorts of good cohort analysis. Something that I think all good data analytics teams are leaning into more and more, right? So is this particular manager or group of managers or level of experience, how is that impacting our hiring and retention? Same thing with our recruiters, right? Our senior recruiters delivering better business impact on their hires than our junior recruiters? That's a good question. We should be looking at that. And so maybe that's how we start thinking about it, is through these cohort analysis of the different variables in the process that we can control and see and watch for impact. But at the end of the day, it's business impact is the only thing that really matters.
It does, but then it becomes a series of smaller analyses though throughout the process and post hire. And if I'm somebody who is performing, and am I also referring or not? And if not, why?
That's a great question.
And if not, why that? And then how and again, this goes back to the theme of retention, that it's been top of mind for many, many different companies, and why we're hearing in our Candy community that TA is partnering more with HR and talent management to work on internal mobility and redeployment. And it's part of what we've been asking in our monthly Candy Pulse survey too. Redeployment is a small percentage. A lot of companies had already done it early on in the pandemic and even through this last year. Wow. And then I look at the time right now, I'm like, we could, this was a great discussion. And I look forward to thinking about what we're going to, I think the answer is that we've broken this down into smaller segments that need to be looked at. We're removing the word quality. It's the cohort model, as you were saying, smaller segments of what is going right and what is going wrong, pre-hire and post-hire, and how does that then all line up, and can that be replicated, right, again and again?
I guess the question to walk away with is measuring quality as your term, right? Quality of hire, simply a lazy way of dealing with this problem.
Right. Oh, ooh,
juicy.
We might get some calls on that one. I don't know. But well, listen, this has been great, Leah. Of course, always thought provoking discussions, and at some point we're going to start having some guests on.
Yeah, I'm excited. Let's do it.
That you and I have gotten our sea legs now. But it's always a pleasure speaking with you, and until next time, keep talent sinking.
I know. We'll sync up.
Yeah, we'll sync up. Talent sinking sounds like we're talent sinking sounds like we're going down. Keep talent sinking. No, we don't. No, wrong.
Talent rising.
Expression.
Talent rising, everybody.
Talent rising. Oh God, that's so funny. All right. Thanks, Leah. We'll see you in the next time. All right.
Sounds good. Bye, Kevin.
Thank you for listening to the Talent Sync podcast, a Talent Board and Job Sync collaborative podcast production. More episodes soon.